What's up, everybody? Back again, another video talking about boomsticks. Alright, so for today, we're going to be discussing trigger modifications. Alright, so the weapon we're going to be running over because of the simplistic, straightforward design of the trigger mechanism is going to be the M240. I know we're talking about a gun shop. You're not going to come into a medium machine gun used for multiple NATO militaries coming into your shop often, but hey, short, simple, sweet, gives you guys something to look at, and yeah. All right. So what is the potential ramifications of a customer might face by having a trigger or the the trigger of his firearm modified? All right. So let's break down the first one. So the ramifications of that is you're going to have a lighter trigger pull, which means it's going to be a lot more abrupt with the action. Of firing the weapon, which means you're going to have that lighter leeway, a lot more time or a lot less draw time or that dead time while you're squeezing that trigger before your brain can engage. I'm squeezing. Oh, wait, that's not that 8-point buck. That's some dude's Ford Ranger he parked out in the middle of the field. That slight differentiation in time. Otherwise, safety ramifications, because essentially the trigger is just pinning a spring to prevent the action from moving forward with its capability, or it's just preventing stored energy from being used in the method that in which is needed to fire that weapon. So any sort of bump or jive has the possibility to jolt it just enough out of place to allow that trigger to trip, which would be engaging that weapon. So I'll go into more detail on this. I'm just going to do all my talking and then iterate more when we get to the display. All right, what is one potential ramification of a gunsmith armor might face by modifying a customer's trigger is if you're inexperienced or if there were faults in your trigger job, you will be liable for any catastrophic or off-branch capabilities. There was a story released a couple of years ago to where someone had a weapon that had a trigger pull that was floating around a pound. So a gust of wind could fire that weapon. Well, they were going to go shooting with some of their friends and one of their kids. And like every other general gun owner, if you have children, you should be able to teach them at a young age, to teach them. That way it's not this big taboo thing in the closet. And, it's a fun sport that allows families to bond. Well, you have to be safe and efficient with it. Well, since this weapon had such a light trigger pull, the child ended up getting injured from negligence of supervision and negligence and incompetence in giving a weapon with such light trigger pull that it became dangerous and safer. There's a reason why draw weights are set to heavier weights is to allow you to have that time to be like, oh, all right, that last second capability, or to prevent it from being snagged or slightly bumping into something and then negligently firing your weapon. All right. So make sure that as those gunsmiths and armorers doing that, you're being competent, you're being aware. I suggest practicing or doing a job on a sear or striker or other part of the assembly or the clockwork inside that trigger system on a spare or duplicate, so that way if anything is not to where it is, you would not be damaging the owner's firearm. And then when you reach the job, to have the ability to, all right, cool, the sear is properly to where I want it, it trips good, it's proper weight. I could beat the devil out of the gun, to quote Bob Ross, to actually be safe and efficient, but light enough to allow ease of, let's say it's an older shooter with arthritis and they can't really have that grip strength. So that way it's like, all right, 1-for-1 swap for that, test it, pull, do your extreme test, do your minor test, do your flash cap test, then go into your live ammunition testing. You should be the first person to test those firearms before you hand it to someone else. So it negates that liability, and it still allows you to have the ability with your customer to be like, yes, I personally test fired this. It works for me. It's there. See the video and log and document it just in case, to where it's like, this is the proper way of doing it. This is how it's designed, and save you legally, because there are stupid people on the planet that do stupid things that they're not supposed to. Now, if there is potential legal consequences by completing a trigger job, what is one of the strategic practices gunsmiths and armorers use to protect themselves? Explain whether you think that strategy is something you would use in your shop. As I said previously, do your trigger job on, if anything, a alternate version. Test it. Make sure you have your proper measurements so you have those. When you are removing material, use it minutely. You are pretty much dusting it, testing, dusting, testing, dusting, testing, instead of going in there and gouging out large chunks of material, and then you surpass your safe space to where now a feather could flutter 3 miles away, and now your gun negligently discharges. And that way, if it is in any situations where it's like, oh, all right, my job's faulty, you can swap it to the original assembly and be able to be like, all right, it's to where it originally was from factory. It is in the safe conditions, falls under warranty of legality. If there was anything wrong with the original assembly there, it was not from you, or it's under that company's warranty and design. So that way you can notify whomever designed the weapon to be like, hey, I'm experiencing your guys' triggers assemblies to have this kind of fault, and if necessary, they can recall those, work on it, get their problems fixed, and have them push forward with that task and not have the burden lie on you. But remember, do it safely, do it efficiently, and make sure you're doing it correctly. Now, for video demonstration of what the danger areas of this are, we're going to go to the 240. Let's go into the X-ray level here. All right. So, let me swap the weapon off safe. All right. So let's fire a small burst, and you will see how this trigger assembly essentially is just pending the strength. It's just essentially holding back this recoil rod to just allow it to just fly forward and fire the weapon. All right. So let's zoom in a little bit right here so you guys can get a better shot. And let's go. Pulls back. Disconnects. Let me catch my breath. So when you pull the trigger, it drops down that lever, which then allows the sear to actuate and move to its necessary position, which is out of the way. Now, if I can come over here. So when that sear is dropped, and I rotate here to the bottom of the bolt carrier, you will see a small insert into the bolt carrier itself. That is its input to where it will be engaged by the sear. Now, if we back that up, you will see that this small notch right here, I gotta fast forward because it is not doing what I want it to do. Alright, so if you see here, that small notch is what's holding the entire bolt assembly. And from that, any little bit of material that you remove is just like, it is getting rid of that height and depth and strength of that capability of moving it. Now, if this weapon were to drop or be jostled, it would free that up, and then you would have the ability of a negligent discharge. I've seen 240s just be mistreated, and then when they go to the range, they go to shoot it, it strips the top of that sear because it becomes so worn, and then from the lack of maintenance, that it's essentially not there, and the gun is running away and it's shooting like it has its own mindset. And that is what you're looking for, to make sure that you are not removing enough of those sears or those striker surfaces from those trigger jobs to where a simple bump would just shave the remainder off, and then has your gun doing whatever the gun decides it wants to do. And finding that sweet spot to where there's enough meat there to keep it in a safe condition, but you don't have to move as much material to pull the trigger, which then would be easier for people that commonly will shoot precision weapons, or if they have problems with their fingers. So, as always, treat every weapon as if it were loaded. Never point your weapon at anything you do not intend to shoot. Keep your fingers straight off the trigger until you're ready to fire. Keep your weapon unsafe until you intend to fire. And know your target lies beyond and in between. And everybody, if you guys need help or you need someone to talk to and you are just out there in the middle of nowhere, take a look down in my description of my videos. There is a lot of helpful call lines there. It's like just to talk to someone, help vent, just get yourself out there, all right? A lot of people are having a hard time post-pandemic, and we're rolling into another year of it. All right, everybody's stuck at home. A lot of people are away from friends and family. People that are at home, maybe their ability to get out of the house is better than being with their friends and family. Make sure you're talking to people. Make sure you're keeping up with your friends and family and the people you work with. All right? Make sure everybody stays safe. Love you guys. Goodbye.